Welcome to 3 Things I've Learned with your host, Susan Dolce, where we share the stories that shift our souls. In the next hour, we will dive deep into the soul-shifting magic of stories. Stories of radical transformations, courageous breakthroughs, and life lessons. We're all students in this soul school called life. We don't need to do this alone. Why not share our notes? 3 Things I've Learned starts now. Hey everyone, welcome to 3 Things I've Learned. I'm Susan Dolce and I am super excited about today's show. But for those of you who might be tuning in, hoping to hear Corey McDonald, she's the author, healer, and art therapist I had scheduled for today's show. Well, she emailed me very early this morning. She's in Belgium, so she is 7 hours ahead. And she had to cancel because she's feeling under the weather. So, of course, I told her, that rest is more important than being on the show. And she was actually going to do it live, which means it would have been 9:00 at night her time. I'm like, if I don't feel good at 9:00 at night, I want to just crawl under the covers. So I promise that I will have her on soon and we will discuss her new book, Life in Full Colors, and how to tap into our divine creative intelligence. But I am super lucky because I had a friend step in at the last moment, and I'm really excited to have my friend and colleague on the show today, Britta Albert. If you don't already know Britta, she is a spiritual transformational life coach. She offers her services, excuse me, at brittaalbertcoaching.com. And she has a prolific channel over on YouTube. She has a couple of YouTube channels, but she has one dedicated to her coaching business. And the other day she posted a video that really caught my attention. And it was about when she was little and she was able to see or sense, perceive ghosts or entities, and how that ability impacted the trajectory of her life. And it reminded me of when I was little. I remember being able to do the same sort of thing, at least, sense other energies. And I was always terrified. I remember, thinking, and I think you even mentioned this in a few of your videos, like if I pulled the covers over my head, I'd be okay. And being so afraid, I didn't even care if I had to get up to pee in the middle of the night. There was no way I was getting out of my bed. And I never said anything to anyone because I knew they wouldn't believe me. And I think I was around 11 or 12. It was either right before or after my grandma died. And I remember saying a prayer, asking God, please, to take this away from me. And kind of just like that, it seemed to stop. So it got me thinking about how many people had this experience growing up and how it impacted their lives. And so with that, let me introduce Britta Albert to the show.
Hello. It's so good to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for filling at the last minute. I am so grateful. And disclosure moment, Britta's going to be back on in March. So if you love her, stay tuned for more great info in March. But today we're going to talk about her experience of being able to see ghosts when she was little. And we're offering today's show as a call-in show. So if you have any comments or questions you'd like to ask Britta, the number to the show is 1-800-930-2819. So Britta, I know your story. I've watched the video. Actually, I've watched it probably 3 times now because I was doing research for today. And I would love if you could share that story or some of that story again with people who are listening.
Okay. So with many stories, the beginning often isn't the beginning. So I will do my best to explain it in the actual order, not the order that I remember things in. So essentially what happened is I did have abilities when I was younger, and I went through life and my family didn't necessarily believe in ghosts, or I think it's more of there was fear there. And I can't blame them because when your child is telling you that they're seeing things, you can't protect them from those things. And you don't want your child to be afraid. So you'll tell them whatever they need to hear, whatever you feel they need to hear in the moment to feel safe and secure in their bed. So I'm going to jump ahead so that I can come back.
Okay.
With that, I ended up repressing a lot of these memories. And there was a huge chunk of memories from about the age of 8 to the first half of 12 where I had no memories. The only memories that I had were what family members had told me. And when you
Mhm.
see pictures and you hear stories, you can kind of fabricate these fake memories in your mind. That's kind of what I had. I had these little bits and pieces of fabricated memories, hearing stories and seeing pictures of that span of a couple of years. And life went on, and I had no recollection of being able to see anything until I was 19, and my mom and my brother had passed away in a car accident. And then my brother-in-law the very next year had passed away in a car accident. And
Mm.
something about that event just burst everything wide open.
Yeah, I bet.
And I thought I was a late bloomer. I was very confused. And I tried to do research, but the internet wasn't what it is now.
Yeah.
You didn't really have, like, Google was around, but it wasn't as strong as it is. And I didn't know how to use really the internet the way that I do now either. So when I was searching for answers of, does this happen? Do people get abilities later on in life? I would find things like near-death experiences, which did happen later on down the road, but was not applicable for that.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find anything to explain why I was 19 years old and now being able to have these abilities of seeing entities or contacting spirits, being able to communicate with spirits. I had no idea what that meant. And a couple of years later, into my mid-20s, the more healing that I did, the more trauma that I stopped running from in my life, then that somehow it did something where my mind was safe.
Mm-hmm.
My mind allowed those memories to come back, and it was like the floodgates opened up.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I had full memory of the very first memory I have is playing hide and go seek with what I call angels.
Mm-hmm.
When I was little, I remember being, I don't know, maybe 2, maybe 3, probably closer to 2 because I was still in a crib. I remember laying in the crib and looking at this little mobile thing that I had on the side of the crib rail,
Yeah.
and playing with it and just hearing their call. And to me, when I hear my guides or angels, it sounds like I hear it with my physical ears, and it sounds like tinnitus.
Mm.
So it's like that high-pitched ringing noise.
Yeah.
And
I definitely know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it will get louder or quieter, and that I can tell like where they are around me and how many there are. And it's very, I said this in my video, but it's very much like echolocation.
Mm-hmm.
It helps me identify depth perception of where they're at. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I heard. And I remember climbing out of my crib, sliding down the rails, crawling across the room, and going into the bathroom. And this was probably 2 a.m, 3 a.m. Nobody was awake. My parents were asleep. My sister was asleep.
Yeah.
And they were these balls of light. And I would just follow the sound, the ringing, to the ball of light, and then it would go and disappear, and I would find it again. That was our little game of hide and seek.
Yeah. Don't you wish you had a baby cam back then?
I know.
Wouldn't that be fun?
I don't know. Do we?
I don't know. Yes, but I definitely, just out of curiosity, that ringing, that high pitch, I know what you're talking about. Do you hear it in both ears or one ear? I'm just curious. Because I usually only come in one ear, not both ears at the same time.
So if I will hear it in both ears, if it's applicable to hear it in both ears.
Okay. Oh.
Meaning if I'm surrounded, I'll hear it in both ears. But if they're coming from a certain direction, say for example, they're on the front right, I will hear it out of my right ear only.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So I'm sorry I interrupted your story.
No, perfectly fine. Yeah, with that, I mean, the positive was that beautiful memory of playing hide and seek with angels that I was able to gain. But then I also had this memory of a shadow entity that would pace my doorway. And I don't know if it was telepathy or just being able to read and feel his intention. I'm not positive what that was, but I knew that I'd say his because it had a more masculine energy to it. But this shadow figure, it would pace by my room. I knew that its intent was destruction. It was not going to kill me. I don't know if it would have physically harmed me, but its intent was chaos and destruction. And I didn't understand until I was much older, even after the memories came back, why he would get so angry and why it would continue to get, the frustration would build and build and build because it was looking for an opening to get in, and it could not get in my room. Now, why couldn't it get in my room? My mom used to come and pray over me at night. And I realized that it wasn't so much the prayer or the words she said, but her intention as a mother, her love was, she was putting her intention of protection over me. And I don't think she even knew the power of what she was doing when she would pray over me. You know, she's hoping I have a good night's sleep and sleep through the night and, you know, wake up without any nightmares or whatever her intention was. But because of her love and it being so strong, she literally covered me and she created a force field in my room. This dark entity could not cross the threshold of my room, and it would be in the hallway and it would pace my doorway, continuing to become more agitated as it tried to find an opening. And that's where, as you said, I would put the blankets over my head or put my pillow over my head, and I thought in my mind that it would look like nobody was in my room, and I thought I could trick it into thinking that nothing was in the bed. But it is that was a neat memory to, even though it was scary, to really realize the power of love, not necessarily even just a mother's love, but the pure, raw intent. It couldn't even have a breath of a chance to get past the barrier that her intention put up. And it really helped me come to terms with my personal strength and what I'm capable of and how protected I actually am. Because when you're afraid of these things, they can actually hurt you because you're giving your power away.
Yeah. We're gonna take a pause here. We're gonna take a quick break. But one of the things I want to talk about when we come back is the difference between understanding the difference between a benevolent spirit and a low vibration spirit. And because one of the things that is coming to mind as you're talking about this is that, in my opinion, I believe they feed off your fear. And that's the whole goal. It's sort of like, in some ways, it's sort of reminiscent of Monsters, Inc., like the monster in the closet. So if you scream and they get all that negative energy. Anyway, we're going to talk about that when we come back. You're listening to 3 Things I've Learned. I'm talking with Britta Albert. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Diane McClay. I'm comfortable being in front of people. How to make things work in a structured format made me feel a little nervous. Everybody I have worked with on the Transformation Talk team met me with enthusiasm. Their confidence in me spilled over to me and allowed me to just grab onto it and say, oh yeah, that's me and I can own it. Thank you for showing up for me. Thank you for allowing me to put my gifts into the world, and thank you for making me look good while I do it.
Hi, I'm Trish Laub from A Cup of Comfort, where we talk about Care Hero topics that nobody wants to talk about. Here's your Care Hero tip of the day. During all Care Hero journeys, the need to keep track of a lot of information arises, some of it critical. Possibly the greatest challenge Care Heroes face is the gathering and organizing of information. Just as every trade has a power tool, whether an electric drill or a laptop, My family's Care Hero power tool was the 3-ring binder. We generated a mini library of labeled 3-ring binders, one for each category of information, complemented with additional spiral notebooks used to detail medical appointments and episodes. This unfussy and convenient system of binders helped my family stay organized and able to deliver the dignified care and end of life my parents desired. Tune into my show to learn more. See you on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month at 12 Pacific here on Transformation Talk Radio. Feel free to reach out to me at info@trishlaub.com.
The Truth is Funny. Shift Happens with monthly guest host Karen Benton. Tune in for powerful conversations about health and wellness. Karen brings unique insights rich with humor and science to her discussions with experts in medicine, movement, psychology, spirituality, and so much more. Don't miss Karen on The Truth is Funny every third Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information about Karen, visit KarenBenton.com.
The Dr. Pat Show.
The Dr. Pat Show.
The Dr. Pat Show.
This is it. The energy of heart to heart, mind to mind, love to love. These are the questions that people have and rarely state. When we have an internal transformation and we see things differently, what does it mean to step into the full nature of being a spiritual being? How am I to be? This is it. Every day, you have to do something outrageously positive. It is so absolutely relevant because what I've seen in humanity, despite what's in the headlines, I'm so struck by the heroes that have come forward. I'm just absolutely in awe. The idea generators and superheroes. All of you, you are the best listening audience in the world, and we are bringing it in 2021.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is 3 Things I've Learned. I'm Susan Dolce, and today I am chatting with spiritual transformational life coach Britta Albert. Britta, before we get onto malevolent versus benevolent entities, where can people find you?
So they can find me on Facebook at Albert Coaching. You can find me on Instagram at Britta Albert LC. And you can find me at my website at brittaalbertcoaching.com.
Wonderful. And yeah, like I said, her YouTube channel has so much rich content. Like you could just binge watch her videos. So you might want to go do that. I don't know.
I suppose YouTube as well. You know.
Yeah. So before the break, we were talking about shadow figures. And I know that in one of, like I said, I watched a lot of videos this morning. You talked about the difference between malevolent, low energy vibration entities and benevolent entities. And the thing that I found fascinating about how you described it is they're all shadows.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a shadow figure or a shadow person does not mean that it is quote unquote evil or even that it's a lower vibration. A shadow entity simply means that it is concealed. And I have come across several shadow entities that are actually benevolent. They're loving. They're beings of light. And part of them loving you is trying not to scare the crap out of you. So if you have, say, for example, a guide or a guardian angel or something like that, and for whatever reason it's called for in the moment for you to see them, or you just happen to have a gift that you can see them and they show themselves as a shadow, it's for your benefit, for your protection in the moment. Now, can you request that they show you their true form? Absolutely. You just have to make sure that you're ready for that. But that, again, that's it doesn't mean that it's negative. And a lot of times we're like, oh, well, something's hidden. So why are you hiding from me? I'm distrustful of what's being hidden. And you can feel into the intention without actually seeing the true form. And I'll give you an example. I'm sure you have experienced this, and many people have experienced this. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the energy right after somebody had a fight?
Mm-hmm.
And even though there's no fight that's going on and you were not aware of what was happening in the room, there's this heaviness to it, and it puts you immediately on edge. And you're just like, I'm not sure if I feel comfortable in this situation. This is really awkward. I can't really explain why. Maybe I don't even feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Or another example would be if you're around a stranger and they give you what we call the heebie-jeebies, and you just don't feel okay around this person. They might look very nice on the outside. They may be smiling at you. They might be saying very kind words, but there's something about them that sets you at a dis-ease where you're just not comfortable, and you have this, it activates your fight or flight, and you want to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with shadow beings. Now, you're almost always going to have that fight or flight when you first see a shadow entity, regardless if it's benevolent or malevolent.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? Malevolent.
It's like Maleficent. It's hard to say.
Yeah. Because it's jarring.
Right.
It's jarring to see something that's not normally there.
Right.
So I would just recommend anybody, if you encounter a shadow being, try to become present in your body, become present with your breath, and try your best not to freak out and just feel into, what am I actually getting? Aside from, can I separate the jarring nature of this encounter, and can I feel into, are you here for my benefit? Are you loving? Are you light? Or are you a predator, essentially?
Mm-hmm. We have a caller.
Oh, awesome.
We have Les from Charleston, West Virginia. Thanks for calling in, Les. Do you have a question for Britta?
Let me just bring them on real quick. We have Les from Charleston, West Virginia. Les, you are on with Susan Dolce and Britta Albert.
Hello, how are you doing?
We're doing great. How are you?
All right. I've seen you online. Is this not, I guess Britta, she's still talking, so I don't want to interrupt you talking.
There might be a delay. She's not talking right now, so you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, what I wanted to bring into the conversation, I know this is more of looking, trying to get people to look on the inside and learning like how to do shadowing with yourself and different things. There's different things. I try to think about mindfulness as a practice, and there's many things that people can do, I think, to bring out the best in themselves. But if you have to be able, I think, to be honest with yourself and look at yourself more objectively, to not to bring ill feelings about what you see yourself as. So I think you have to. I think it starts from there, accepting who you are, loving who you are, and having compassion. Because if you don't, then how are you going to have that? Live that a full, let that live by example and take those kind of actions.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Britta, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, just take it a step further. You want to include the whole keyword of shadow. That's what shadow work is. Shadow work is us, a lot of self-forgiveness and understanding who we are and accepting ourselves and loving ourselves exactly how we're at, where we're at. And honestly, that kind of segues into the next part that I was going to talk about too perfectly. Yeah. I think you hit that right on the head.
Yeah, so we were talking I'm sorry, go ahead, Les.
Oh, I'm sorry. I get very enthusiastic to talk to people about good things, especially about just any part of doing good things in their life, or being practicing kindness and compassion, and make and try to put put that in practice, where that's where they become that person, and that's who they are more so than anything else. And I think really, we talk. I've been online. I enjoy connecting with people, but I think there is as much talk that goes online on social media. If you don't, I think the best conversations that I find are planned talks like what you're doing now, and people follow it, so they can just listen, and hopefully when people are talking like you ladies are doing about good things and how to connect, that they can understand it, and maybe it'll connect where they can have more just good intentions, may be able to go farther with it and learn and put it in practice. But what I think though, and I'll quit my talk in there because I get wound up. I've been if this I tell you what, the COVID-19 is terrible, but it's helped me do some exploring that I've never done. I'm retired, so it came at the right time for me to just think about myself and open up to myself as who I am. And it's been a wonderful, I could think it's an adventure because it's like something new for me that I haven't done. And it's helping me realize that I can do so much more, connecting with people and being and living by example. Now, I just, I think that, and then what it all boils down to, because I see a lot of people talking. There's so many people that have awakened. They say they have awakened, and there are different levels, but the understanding, we don't know how each person understands and how they put it in practice. And then there's teachers and guides that go online and all off and on that do the same thing that you guys are doing, I see, and I think it's wonderful, and the more exposure that people can have to this, and hopefully that'll inspire them with their lives. But what I think it all boils down to, we're at a point of the crossroads in life right now, which we always are, but more so now, is what do we do? How do we approach just in our own minds how to think? How do we become the master of our thoughts to control our feelings and emotions and to take the right actions? I think it's all based on it's the mindset and how we have that conscious awareness. Does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. And we are coming up on another break, Les. So we're gonna have to go right now.
Well, okay. And thanks for taking my call. And I wish you both of you all the best doing. I hope you keep this going. I love being part of it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate your listening. Okay, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to keep talking about seeing spirits, good entities versus negative entities. I'm talking with Britta Albert from BrittaAlbertCoaching.com. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Brittany Miles from Miles to Go, How to Lose to Gain It All. I have a mindfulness practice to help you face difficult emotions. It's called RAIN. Developed by Tara Brach, the letters mean the following. R, recognize what's happening to you. A, allow the situation to be as it is. I, investigate feelings with interest and care. And nurture yourself with self-compassion. So you see, RAIN isn't so bad after all. Tune into my show to learn more. See you on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, here on Transformation Talk Radio. Feel free to reach out to me at miles2gocoaching.com. That's miles, the number 2, gocoaching.com.
Tune in to The Truth is Funny with Colette Steffen each Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This hit show will have you thinking outside the box and riding the wave of infinite potential. Join Colette on the Higher Self Network, inspiring listeners to shine their brilliance and ensure success while roaring with laughter as they recognize the humor of the giant cosmic joke. Visit TheTruthIsFunny.com.
Are you ready to let go of the I can'ts that are holding you down? Valerie Trujillo invites you to join her community on a mission to collectively heal as a tribe, where your vulnerability is heard and reciprocated. So tune in to Love and Light with the Crystal Blue Oracle every second and fourth Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information about Valerie and her work, visit crystalblueoracle.com.
The vibration of change, that magical place where life shifts from struggle to ease, from stagnation to forward movement, from old ways of being to new ways of becoming. If you're like I am, it can be rather elusive to get there, but when you are in it, you feel it down to your very core, don't you? And it can positively affect everything in your life, from your relationships to your health and well-being, from your career path to your abundance, from the quality of that inner connection to the fullness of your self-expression. On the Christine Upchurch Show, we explore ways to get into that vibration of change with experts in the fields of consciousness, psychology, spirituality, health, healing, and science. Join me, Christine Upchurch, every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on KKNW AM 1150 and Transformation Talk Radio, and learn new ways to step into your vibration of change.
Welcome back. This is Three Things I've Learned, and I'm Susan Dolce, and today I'm talking with Britta Albert. She is a spiritual transformational life coach. That's a big mouthful. And we are talking about Britta's ability, and many people have this gift of being able to sense, perceive spirits or guides or entities, so many different names for them. And before the break, we were talking about how a shadow entity doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. It just means that it's cloaked, that it doesn't want you to see itself. And if you ask to, you better be prepared. Like, I remember one of your videos you said, and I really truly believe this, that especially if it were, an angel or a spirit guide, that our brains might not have the capacity to fully see or embrace, like if they really did show themselves in their true form. But
Right.
When we were prepping, we were talking about how we can create our own shadow entities.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's way more that exist than just angels, demons, and ghosts. And most religions, well, I can't speak for most religions. I have experience with Christianity specifically. And I will preface the version of Christianity that I was exposed to was not godly, just to be blunt about it. But for at least the versions of Christianity that I know, you may get some acknowledgement of the spirit world other than angels and demons, meaning they may or may not even acknowledge ghosts. And if they do, that's pretty much where it stops. You don't really go beyond that. But the reality is, like I was saying, we have shadow work that we do. What is our shadow? The shadow is not the worst parts of us. The shadow is the rejected parts of us. So the rejected part could be artistic part of you. If you are in an environment where, say, if you're a boy growing up and art is seen as girly or just unmanly, that bit might be rejected by your family, and therefore that little boy may reject it in himself. That artistic ability now becomes part of the shadow. There's nothing bad about it, but it's a rejected part of himself. So it is detached. If there's enough intensity of the energy behind what we're rejecting, it can create its own entities, and you can have multiple of them. So when I experience something like a poltergeist, something that's never been alive, either it can be an entity that was placed there with intention, or it can be more often than not something that was created accidentally.
Mm-hmm.
So if you believe that we are children of God and God is the creator of the universe, by birthright, we are creators.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it all the time. We create houses, we create cars, we create the clothes that we wear. We're constantly creating. We create music. We create life and miniature versions of ourselves. We are creators. That's what we do. So you can also create an entity, and it can become sentient, where it can interact with you and it can physically harm you if you give it that power. I think this is where we're talking that you can give it the power by having fear.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they become more parasitic than anything else.
Well, because it's the fear that keeps them. It's the fear is the juice, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I know you watched a lot of videos of mine. Did you by chance watch the one on exorcism?
I did not.
So,
but I would love to hear about that. Tell me about that.
What I have found, and it does not mean that my way is the only right way. There are multiple ways to handle. But what I've found that works best for me when clearing a house or something that you would consider like casting out something, clearing, I've learned to respect the free will of the entity. And I have learned to do it with love and light. When you take, for example, just your classic Hollywood exorcism, where it's super extra, and the priests are yelling at the demon and they're like screaming and like they're approaching it in a way that's so hateful, like, I hate you, be gone, Satan, nobody loves you, nobody wants you, we cast you away, in the name of Jesus we rebuke you. That's hate. That is anger, and it is loving it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You are feeding it. And what happens is we all have free will. All forms of energy, entities, humans, whatever. We all have free will. And you choose your path of polarity. Do you choose service to self, which is a negative polarity, or do you choose service to others, which is a positive polarity? Both forms are valid. Both should be honored because of free will. So even if there's an entity that's of a lower vibration, that's of that service to self path, if I'm trying to inflict my will upon it, then it can still feed off of that because I'm trying to control. And it's actually very difficult for them to hold that lower polarity. So when Jesus came around the man with the legion in him and they begged him not to torment them, they didn't mean that Jesus was going to torture them and cast them into hell. Being in his presence, he was such a high polarity that just his mere presence was torturous to them because it pulled them up on the positive scale of polarity that they work so hard to maintain this lower polarity. So when you are doing an exorcism or clearing a house or building or something like that, if you were to approach it with love and honoring their free will, they're going to leave on their own accord because they don't want to be around your love, because your love is going to pull up their polarity. They're going to lose all of their ground. It is difficult when you are mad. if it's your child that is being hurt by an entity, you're probably not the right one to handle this.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be very emotionally invested and you're going to want to have vengeance and all that. But when you come into a situation and you say, how can I help you? What do you need? It's going to like cuss at you. It's going to lash out at you like an animal that's trapped in a corner. And it's going to do anything and everything that it possibly can to get away from you. And that's when it will leave, is when it's actually surrounded by love and light. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to fight nothing. It doesn't want to lose its polarity groundwork that it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that is an actual negative entity or whether that's one that we've created ourselves, when it's one you've created yourself, you're really the only one that can heal that one. So I have encountered a mother who there was an entity that was scratching her 4-year-old son. But she was miserable in her marriage and she hated her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And every time he was home, the attacks were worse. And it's because her anger and her bitterness towards her husband, she didn't want to acknowledge it was there. So she pushed that. She rejected that part of her. And every time he was home, she fueled it and she gave it more anger and more rage. And it went after the weakest, which was her son. And the only way for her to heal, the only way to stop that entity would be for her to get counseling and to heal. If she can't heal the marriage, I'm not one who says that you need to stay if it's a bad situation. For her, if she could not heal the marriage and she could not heal herself, and she tried, if that's what she even wanted, she needs to leave. That union isn't a union anymore.
Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like you almost need to integrate that lost facet back into yourself and love it to death to make it.
Yeah. So ultimately, love is, whether you're doing an exorcism or whether it's your own shadow that you've created, self-forgiveness, self-love. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking just a little bit ago about Christianity and religion, and I'm curious about. I guess I'm going back to being a little kid who says, I think I see, ghosts, or I see, there's a demon that's, hiding at the foot of my bed. Something wants to come and attack me at night. And if you come from a particularly religious family, they're going to say, what? Like you said, angels, well, in your video, you said, oh, it's okay to play with angels. Like, they're not going to hurt you. But now there's demons. And, like you said, oh, do we have to pray over you? Do we have to do, like, what do we need to do? Mm-hmm. And then the child isn't validated at all. Now they're basically told that what they're doing is wrong and evil. And, now that's a part of them that they are going to stuff down, which we haven't gotten to her, we're not going to have time to get to her whole story today. But that's kind of what happened. Like, you kept stuffing this ability and not being able to talk about it and not being validated and nobody listening to you. And it just kept eating away, as you got older and found new ways to, like, torment you.
Yeah. And it was such a conflict in my mind based upon what I was experiencing versus what I was being told, that my brain literally locked away. And I don't recall a specific time that I prayed and said, please take this away. But when you said that, it's almost like it triggered a memory, a faint hint of a memory. I remember being on the fetal position in my bed and crying and asking God to not see them at the very least, or to not be crazy. And I think that for sure you can, with religion or without religion, you can feel crazy.
Yeah,
for sure. I know that for me personally, for my story, I was prayed over multiple occasions to cast the demon out in me. And that gave it a feeling of, this isn't safe to explore. Made me not trust myself and not trust my intuition, which, when you are left with no intuition in the world, if you can't trust yourself, who can you trust? Well, then you have to rely on everybody else to tell you who you are, tell you what's good for you. And they're going to be wrong. No matter how good their intentions are, they're going to be wrong. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole of that story because I know we don't have the time for all of that. But
yeah, and it does. It impacts, like you said, not just your intuition, but like trusting yourself. And you also talked about how incredibly lonely it was to have this ability, not being able to talk to anybody about it. I'm sure there were a bunch of other kids you probably could have talked to, but who dares to do that? Because especially when you're in middle school or whatever, you're not going to tell anybody that, because now you're the crazy one in middle school, not just the crazy one in the family.
Right.
Yeah.
And and I went to a Christian private school as well.
Oh, so double down. Yeah.
Yeah. Even more so, you don't talk about that. You don't talk about anything that makes you seem like you're a bad person or would be labeled as bad. And I think that was kind of the thing, is there's so many taboos that even at that Christian private school, even listening to secular music, anything that was not Christian music, you were a bad person, and people didn't necessarily want you like playing with their kids. So there was a lot of being locked up within myself of not sharing. I would reach out sometimes and just be met with it's your imagination, or you had a nightmare, or, and again, I think I can't really blame my parents for that, because I think it was coming from a place of not understanding, a place of fear. Like exactly like you said, like just for a child to say, "Oh, I'm playing with angels," it's like, "Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, how nice." And you say, "Well, there's a demon that's pacing my doorway." They're like, "Oh my gosh, no, like, you're okay. Don't worry about it. Like, that's not real."
Right. Angels can be real, but no, not the dark, mean, shadowy figures. Yeah.
Right. Because then what does that mean for us too? I think that there's kind of a unspoken reflection as a parent, perhaps, of if there's a demon in our house, is it because our child is a magnet, or is it because we brought it here because of our behavior and our, whatever. I can't exactly ask my mom because she's no longer with us, but potentially is there fear from your own guilt, of your own attempts to hold yourself to this level of, for just that, what we were talking about, Christianity.
So what's your advice for parents who, their kids have come to them and maybe, said the same thing? I play with angels, or, because I think the worst thing we can do is tell them it's not real. I remember my oldest daughter is highly, highly creative, and she used to, I think she's still afraid of the dark. Anyway, if she's listening, she will get mad at me. Anyway, but so, like you have I had ghost spray, and I had a song that I would sing, before she would go to bed. And because I didn't want her to think, that, because I didn't know, that none of it was real, or, oh no, that's just all in your head. And that sometimes that makes it even worse. Like, I'm making that up in my head. Now what does that say? So, I mean, do you have any advice for parents?
I do. I would say the best thing you can do is listen. When my daughter's never really said anything, but my son has multiple, since he was about 2, he would talk about hearing people talk in his room. He's told a couple other stories over the years, and stopped about the time where he was about 8 or 9. He's had other experiences, but really what I did when he was little is I did not lead him, because I wasn't sure what was childhood imagination and what was real. And I was still in a point of healing myself. So I think even now I'd probably be even more equipped with that. But I remember just being very intentional to not say anything that could potentially lead him into a direction. So he would talk to me about the people talking in his room. I didn't want to say, "Oh, were they ghosts?" that would be leading him to a conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to put it in a box because it might not be ghosts. It might be angels.
Yeah.
Might be the people, we lived in an apartment complex, could be the people outside. I didn't know. So that would be the biggest thing, is don't ask leading questions. Don't come to a conclusion for them, but listen. And I think really just listening gives parents the most control. You might not feel like it because you might not feel like you can do much, but you can gauge the situation. And just like you would talk them through how to handle a bully at school would be similar. So you would talk them through how to handle an altercation that they had with their best friend, where you don't want to throw away the relationship. How do you talk them through this difficult interaction? It's a similar thing when they're experiencing these different encounters. How do you help them understand on a psychological level that's also at their age appropriate level,
Right.
without scaring them or getting them to shut it off or leading them? And really listening is the best way to gauge that. Because then if it gets really bad, if they're talking about, I'm getting hurt, or this thing is climbing into bed with me, or really, really dark stuff, if they don't feel comfortable even telling you that they heard people talking, how are they going to feel comfortable telling you about that stuff? And you just pray over them, for one. You can give them a force field. But there are other things that you can do to help them empower themselves and to take control themselves. But you can't even get to that point if they're not going to talk to you at all.
Yeah. I know we're coming up at the top of the hour. We really only have like 2 minutes, but 3 minutes, according to Olivia. But just really quickly, you were instructed on how to create your own force field.
Yes.
So you have a minute.
I'll say this very fast. In one of the memories that I recalled, I have a guide who taught me how to create my own force field. So as my parents' divorce was coming, my mom stopped coming in my room to pray over me. She was dealing with her own stuff, and that left me vulnerable. And all of a sudden there was this, I don't know how to call it other than sacred geometry. But again, it was a more male energy, masculine energy behind it. So I refer to it as a he, but he is a vibrating checkerboard sphere. It's the best way I could describe it. He floats around, and he can be super small, or he can be bigger in size. But he taught me when I was really little, telepathically showed me, not with words, but helped me feel what it felt like to put my own force field around myself. And it was this sparkling, I don't know how to describe it, sparkling dome that he taught me how to do. And I could make it close to my body, or I could make it far away from my body. And to this day, I saw him today, actually. I still see him. So.
Well, I would like to learn how to do that. I'm going to we'll have to follow up. And we are following up. Britta's going to be back on the show on March 16th. And we're going to be talking about, she's working on a new program on processing anger. And that's what we're going to talk about then, which all of this talk, obviously, anger can take on a life of its own. So again, Britta, thank you. You can find out more about Britta, and you can, she has some, I forget what you call your 30-minute, you have a special name for it. I was going to say
my definition session.
Definition session. Yes. Yeah. So you can go there and sign up for one of those at BrittaAlbertCoaching.com.
Yeah.
We all have a story to tell. We can live in the story, or we can transform the story. It's your choice. Change your world. Change your story. Change our world. #Storyfield. I'm all over the place today. Thank you, Britta. This has been great. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to 3 Things I've Learned with Susan Dolce. Tune in every first and third Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com for more inspiring stories of radical transformations, courageous breakthroughs, and life lessons. For more information on Susan and the stories that shift our souls, visit her at susandolci.com. That's susandolci.com. DOLCI. We'll see you next time.
Views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.